Hey everybody, Miss Teacher here. I thought we'd do a couple more examples just to make sure everybody's solid on how do we do these algebraic expressions and formulas. In other words, how do we simplify them? How do we evaluate them? All right, so I thought it would be good to just start off with one that's kind of simple first. So how about if we look at even number 6? So this is number 6. This is the expression. It's an algebraic expression. How do we know it's algebraic? Because it does have a letter holding the place of a value. And in this case, what's the value? So one of the things I don't like about this Go Math series is I wish they would put this 4s equals 3 on another line. And because later on we're going to be learning about equations, and that almost looks like an equation. If you didn't see that word 4 in there, then you might get mixed up. So step 1 is to write the expression. Step 2 is to substitute in the value. Now I want to make sure everybody's clear that we're not just going to stick a 3 in here and call this number 73. Why? Because that doesn't mean 73. When you have a variable next to a number, it means that you're multiplying it. And we learned that yesterday in class. So we're really doing 7 times 3 plus 5. So we substituted in the value for 3, again, coming from here into the expression. So we don't want to forget about our order of operations. So we've been using our little checkoff list, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally checkoff list, and we write it in a hopscotch way, just so that we don't think that we multiply before we divide, and we don't think that we add before we subtract. So we have multiply and we have add in this situation. We're going to multiply first because that's what we always do. We always multiply and divide before we add and subtract. When we multiply these two things together, we get 21. Write what's left, which is plus 5, and then add these two things together and get the 26. So 26 is the correct answer for number 6. All right, let's look at another one that's a little bit easier, like number 7, for example. This one's not too tough, and I have it prepared right here. And we're going to do the same thing. Now, the value that they're giving us for D is 5. That does not mean that this turns into 45. 4D next to each other like that. When you have this would be the coefficient, and this would be the variable. This means 4 times D. So we have to write it like that when we substitute in the value. 21 minus 4 times, I'm going to use parentheses, 5 is the value for D. And where are we getting this 5 from? We're getting it from right here. It says for D equals 5. All right, now we're going to go ahead and follow order of operations. So we're looking at subtraction and we're looking at multiplication. What do we do first? We always multiply or divide before we add and subtract. So that means we're going to do this first and get 20. And then write everything that's left. So we have 21 minus 20. And if we do 21 minus 20, we would end up getting 1 as our final answer. Now notice that in both of these examples, we should have a triangular look to our work. Triangular look. All right, so let's take a look at another example. Let's erase all this so we have room. And let's bring over one that's a little bit harder. So we just did these two. Why don't we look at one like this? This is number 9. All right, so we're looking at number 9. They're telling us right here, this, by the way, this is just a copy of this. For V, they want us to use 5. So again, that doesn't mean that this becomes the number 25. This means 2 times whatever the value for V is when you see a number right next to a variable like that. So let's substitute in the 5. Oops, wrong color. 6 times 2 times 5 minus 3. All right. Now, when we think about our please excuse my dear Aunt Sally checkoff list, the first thing we always have to do is we have to focus on whatever's in the parentheses first. So these are the parentheses right here. When we think about what do we have inside the parentheses, we have multiply and we have subtract. You need to know which one of those two things we're going to do first. In this example, we would do this first. Why? Because we always multiply or divide before we add and subtract. And if we do 2 times 5, that would result in us getting 10. Copy the minus 3. We're not done with the parentheses because we still have an operation going on in the parentheses, and then copy the 6 and the times. All right, so next, since we're still working on the parentheses, we have to subtract this and get the 7. And we can drop the parentheses now because we've done the operation inside. Now, would it be wrong if you included the parentheses still? There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, if this sign wasn't here, this multiplication sign, you could have just written the 6 and then the parentheses and the 7. That would be okay too. But if we don't put the parentheses, it's the same thing in this example. 6 times 7, we end up getting 42 is our final answer for number 9. 42. All right, let's look at probably, I think maybe we should do, let's look at this one right here, number 10. So that's this one right here. Let's clean this up a bit, stretch that out a bit. So this is number 10. I just copied this and I have it here. And this time they're giving us for k equals 6. So we're going to substitute in the 6. 2 times, substituting in a 6 for k, and we have to square that, minus 2. All right, so we have a set of parentheses again, and we have 2 operations within the parentheses. We have squaring, and we have subtraction. In other words, an exponent, and we have subtraction. So we're going to take care of this exponent first. And if we do that, if we do 6 squared, it's not 12. It's not 12. Doesn't mean 6 times 2. It means 6 times 6, which is 36. And then subtract the 2. All right, so we still have our parentheses. We still have stuff to do in the parentheses. And we're going to subtract these 2 numbers and get 34. We can drop the parentheses now because we've done the stuff in it and bring down the goodies that are left, which is the 2 and the times. Now, this is not mental math, so off to the side, you would do the algorithm for 34 times 2. Here you get the 8. Here you get the 6. So this times this is 68. 68 is our final answer. All right, so perhaps we can do maybe one more. What if we do number 11? And let's put that on a fresh page so that we have plenty of room. I'm just going to put this on a fresh page. Let's remember that it's for f equals 95. I'll just grab that in there too. All right, so let's stretch it out. All right, so for f, we're going to substitute in this value of 95. So that means we have to rewrite it 5 times. Instead of putting the f, we're going to put this whole number in, 95 minus 32 divided by 9. All right, so again, we're looking at many operations here. We have this, we have the parentheses with subtraction inside, and we have division. So whenever we have parentheses, which we do, that's what these things are, we have to do that first. Now, for many folks, that's not mental math. Off to the side, set up your algorithm, do the 95 minus 32 out of the way of your workspace. So anytime you have these types of problems, you want to have organizing, showing your work, and then having your algorithms out of the way. So here we get the 3, right? 5 minus 2 is 3, and here we get the 6. So this minus this is 63. Now the answer to the question, can we drop the parentheses, is yes, we can. It wouldn't be wrong. I'm just going to leave them there for a minute. It wouldn't be wrong to leave them there, but usually when we have done the operation within the parentheses and we have signs on either side, then they're not necessary anymore. So I'm just going to move those out of the way. All right, so now we have to decide what are we doing next, because we have multiply and we have divide. Well, when you have these 2 in the same row of work, then you do whichever of the 2 comes first from left to right. So that would be this. We're going to do the 63 times 5. I didn't write that very neatly. To clean that up a bit. All right, so here we get the 15. Here we get the 30, and the one more makes that 31. So this times this is 315. And we still have to divide that by 9. All right, now this is certainly not mental math, so that would require a computation off to the side. So if we do the algorithm for that, that's going to be 315 divided by 9. 9 will not go into 3, but it will go into 31. Let's go 3 times. 9 times 3 is 27. Subtract. Can't take 7 away from 1, so let's rename. This is an 11 now. 11 minus 7 gives you the 4. This minus this gives you nothing. So let's bring down that 5. And 9 goes into 45 5 times. 9 times 5 gives you the 45, and it works out evenly. All right, so the answer to 315 divided by 9, or the quotient of these two numbers, is 35. All right, so I think that's a pretty good start to get you kind of ready to go to work on the homework. There are additional videos if you need a little more support, so be on the lookout for those, and hopefully you found this helpful.